Hey everybody, this is Gabe Hernandez with Comical Opinions. Wanted to talk about a little bit of speculation. This is an opinion, that's a prediction. So we'll see how this goes related to the WandaVision trailer, which just dropped yesterday, which was September 19th. No, September 20th. Sorry about that. September 20th. I like the trailer a bit. I won't play the whole thing simply because I don't want to get copyright struck, because that would be bad. And I don't want anything bad to happen to this channel when it's just getting started. But there was a couple bits of hints and pieces that came out of it. And I think if I'm interpreting the little hints that they give you, and they're very, very small, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, the character played by Kathryn Hahn was the name of the actress that you see in the car at the end of the video. And I'll kind of skip through the trailer just a little bit to kind of get to where you need to go. Is, I think, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, is going to be the key for the MCU for the foreseeable future. A lot of it, especially some of the upcoming movies that have already been announced, and also key to bringing in a lot of characters, both individual and teams, that haven't been seen before. And this is a way to justify it. The teams I'm thinking about in particular are the X-Men, mutants in general, the Fantastic Four. We'll go over that a little bit, but let's see if I can piece through that as far as what's going on here with this trailer. So if we go through it a little bit, and I'm going to skip through again, I don't want to get copyright struck, so I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's sort of comes across as a very black and white sitcom-y type of show, very sort of early Mary Tyler Moore, very Dick Van Dyke, where Scarlet Witch is sort of living in this sitcom-esque black and white bliss with Vision. Now, remember, Vision died or was destroyed in the Avengers movies. And you're thinking about it, how is this possible? How could it possibly happen? If you look briefly, when you get to it a little bit further down the line, here's Kathryn Hahn playing presumably some kind of friend or next door neighbor that is coexistent in this wed bliss. And if we look here, there's a scene where Wanda Maximoff, who plays the Scarlet Witch, is using her powers to pour a bottle of wine. What's interesting about the wine, and I think other people have pointed this out as well, is there's a very prominent M on the bottle of the wine. And the phrase, or for the name of the winery, or the brand of the wine, is Maison de Mépris. Apologize, I don't speak French very well, so I'm not sure if I'm translating it correctly, which translates directly to House of Contempt. But taken half and half, if you put those two together, it's House of M. Now, we'll get to exactly what that means in a little bit. And especially the shape of the M and the design of the M is very reminiscent of a previous very prominent Wanda Maximoff Scarlet Witch title that we'll get to in a little bit. But there's more to it than that. So if we skip ahead a little bit further, the dream that she's in, this sort of black and white sitcom-y type environment, when pushed for detail, basically starts to fall apart. She's forced out of that dream, and then she starts to experience different levels of reality in different types of genres, different styles, different tastes. And then the Vision, as she remembers him, in his when he was alive, or constructed, if you will, encounters the Kathryn Hahn character, who we know from prior news releases and whatnot, plays a character by the name of Agatha Harkness, who I'll get to in a minute as well. So she comes up in the video. We know that Vision encounters her, and she makes the statement that she thought she was dead because the Vision is also dead, which also indicates, and see, she does sort of a witchy cackle at the end there as well. And then the trailer goes on a little bit further into all kinds of shenanigans. I quite like the trailer a lot. I think the tone is great. I think it's something very different, very unique. I think there's a ton of potential. But let's get to the prediction, where I think this character, played by Kathryn Hahn, is so very important. So who is Agatha Harkness? If you go to the handy-dandy Wikipedia, Agatha Harkness, for all intents and purposes, is a witch. She was around during the original Salem witch trials. And in the context of the Marvel Universe, she uses magic just like anyone else. Now, remember, in the MCU version of the Marvel Universe, magic isn't magic in the sense that we traditionally think about it from arcane literature. Magic is basically power manipulation, force manipulation. It's almost a little bit closer to the Force in the Star Wars films, but you can learn to manipulate this energy. You can learn to manipulate this power. That's where Doctor Strange comes from. Remember, Doctor Strange isn't a superhero because he was born with superpowers or went through some sort of scientific accident with radiation or whatever. He learned the old teachings, the spells. He learned how to manipulate this energy that exists and permeates the entire MCU. So in the context of where Agatha Harkness, where in the comics, she's just a straight up witch and knows how to use the black arts, carried that forward into the MCU or the sort of the media version of the Marvel Universe. It would be the same thing. These would be people in olden times who learned through ancient writings, ancient spells, and what have you to manipulate the energy in what they would term magic, or black magic in the case of witches. So we know from the trailer that somehow Agatha Harkness, through some series of events, is brought forward into the current day from the Salem witch times, either through time travel or some kind of accident. Not quite clear on that, but when we take the context of Agatha Harkness and how she relates to Scarlet Witch, we know that in the comics canon, Agatha Harkness teaches Scarlet Witch how to use her powers in a magical witch-like way, hence the name Scarlet Witch. But Scarlet Witch also has her own powers. In the comics, she's a mutant. In the MCU, her powers came through basically some kind of scientific manipulation from Baron von Strucker. So it was a little goofy, a little weird. But the point is, Scarlet Witch already has essentially superpowers where she can manipulate matter or manipulate the environment around her. When Agatha Harkness comes forward in time, we know that, at least in canon anyway, she establishes a relationship with Scarlet Witch, and she teaches her how to use her powers in those arcane spells and magical ways. So if you take a powerful individual with Wanda Maximoff as the Scarlet Witch, who already has power or superpowers, and then you combine that with the teachings of a witch that knows how to manipulate the energy force that exists within the Marvel Universe, akin to magic spells, very much like Doctor Strange. When Wanda puts those two things together, she essentially becomes probably the most powerful being within the Marvel Universe, within the MCU. So she's very key to basically making Wanda more powerful than she already is. She's already very powerful, but you take those teachings and you take that mentorship and you give that to Wanda through Agatha Harkness. You train her to become almost a god. Now let's go back to that wine bottle a little bit. I want to kind of go over something that I think a lot of people have already pointed out is a point that kind of is a hint here. This M, this Maison de Mépris, and what that means. That translates to House of Contention. Contention, is that the word? Contempt. Sorry, House of Contempt. But you could be sure this could be shortened to House of M. Well, House of M was a famous comic run that occurred back in 2005, I believe it was. And in fact, the 15th anniversary of the House of M is 1 week from today. So I don't think the timing of the release of the trailer is accidental either. And in the House of M storyline, Wanda Maximoff, who was a very key character in that situation, very famously uttered the phrase, "No more mutants." And when she did that, it basically wiped out in an instant. It wiped out all the mutants that existed on Earth, except for a handful of them that remained. It was a very famous storyline. I think Brian Michael Bendis was the key writer there. It basically showcased how powerful Wanda Maximoff was and how through her abilities she is able to they can wipe out whole races, whole species, whole sections of the planet. She could wipe them out just by uttering a single word. So how do these two things combine? One more point on that one. We already know that the Doctor Strange sequel has been greenlit, and the title of the sequel is The Multiverse of Madness. That's not an accident. So how do we connect these dots? There's a lot of dots there. So how do we connect them? And how do I put this whole thing on Kathryn Hahn, who seems to be just basically a supporting actor in a Disney Plus streaming show? Kathryn Hahn is the Marvel equivalent of a witch, trained and practiced in the dark arts, very similar to Doctor Strange. She comes forward in time. She befriends Wanda Maximoff and trains her in these arts to combine them with her own innate superpowers, powers of reality manipulation. Similar to House of M, in her grief over losing vision and in her want or desire to kind of establish a parallel universe where essentially she's happy. This is what this black and white sitcom-y type life is like. She's somewhere where she can be, where everything is normal, where she can experience just basically happy married life, bliss, comfort. Everything is just simple. Everything is comfortable for her. There's no stress. There's none of that craziness. Remember, in the MCU, not in the comics, because in the comics it was Speedball, but in the MCU, her accident in the way Crossbones was killed, she was responsible for Crossbones' death and the bomb going off in the way that it did, which eventually led to the events of Civil War. So she's also feeling the grief of that whole conflict of Civil War and everything that came after it, because she was partly responsible for that bomb killing all those civilians. So she's very much desperate to kind of find some level of sanity, some normalcy, some kind of simple bliss within like a suburban lifestyle that's very much like an old-time sitcom, just the simple pleasures of life. So what she's doing, and I believe what's happening here, is because we already know Agatha Harkness is in this vision, no pun intended, of what you will, no pun intended, is she's trying to construct a new reality to kind of get away from the pain and the hardship of the reality that she's currently living in. And so what's happening is Agatha trains her to use her powers in a more powerful way. The trailer is alluding to the House of M with a very subtle hint. We also know that an upcoming Doctor Strange, which also involves magic, is talking about the multiverse of madness. We also know that from the details that Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch will be in that movie. So what I suspect is going to happen is, by Kathryn Hahn arriving in the present, training Wanda Maximoff, Wanda trying to construct a new reality where she doesn't have to deal with being a hero or people dying or losing the android that she loves. Something eventually snaps. Something eventually breaks. And in the course of that break, whether it's psychotic or emotional or whatever else, she'll utter a phrase. It may not be no more mutants, but it might be something else. Maybe no more death, no more pain, no more suffering, no more contempt, whatever it is. And when that happens, the force and the power of it will fracture and create the multiverse. So there's already been hints and rumors that in the Multiverse of Madness movie, she will be possibly a villain, but we'll see. At the very least, Doctor Strange will be arriving on the scene to try and put things back together from whatever creates the fracture or the split. What I'm proposing is Wanda creates the split. Wanda creates the multiverse. And the question is, well, why would you do that? Why would you want to split reality? Why would you want to split and fracture the MCU? It's because of this. Because this is an updated chart of all the characters that belong to all the different studios, be it Universal or Sony, wherever else. Ooh, sorry about that. Clicked the wrong thing. If you look this right side here, a lot of these characters were part of Fox for the longest time. They are now part of the Marvel universe after the acquisition of Fox. And so now there needs to be a way to figure out, how do we incorporate mutants? How do we incorporate the Fantastic Four? How do we incorporate all these characters in the MCU when they hadn't existed prior? The way to do that, a way to do that, may not be the only way, but a way to do that is to fracture the universe, fracture the Marvel universe, create a multiverse, send Doctor Strange in to repair it. But in the course of repairing it, we will discover that there are parallel universe versus parallel existences that exist out there. Maybe one contains the Fantastic Four. Maybe one contains mutants, particularly the X-Men. Maybe one contains any one of these characters that hadn't existed before but do exist now. And in the course of putting everything back together, which of course Doctor Strange, he's the hero, he's going to succeed in doing that. When he puts it all back together, all of a sudden now you have this entirely new population of heroes, mutants, characters that didn't exist in their universe but does exist now. And this is a way to rationalize that in a very creative, potentially a universe-shattering way. But what it's going to do is it's going to turn the entire Marvel universe inside out for the following phases, where they try and figure out how to put all this back together, and try to live within essentially a new paradigm, a new status quo. So that's where I think where it's going with this. And where does it all start? Wanda's already there. She already is struggling with her powers and her abilities and just kind of coexisting. But it's the arrival of Agatha Harkness that's the catalyst that'll make all that possible. And who's playing Agatha Harkness? Well, yep, it's let me bring up a picture here. Kathryn Hahn. It's her arrival that gives Wanda the training she needs. It's her urging and insistence and pushing, because she's not always quite a good guy. Sometimes she can have her own selfish motives. It's her that pushes Wanda to go further than she could go, should go, or maybe wants to go. Kathryn Hahn is the catalyst. Kathryn Hahn as Agatha Harkness will set Wanda off. Wanda, now elevated to basically the status of a powerful god almost, will, in her grief, in her pain, in her sorrow, will fracture the MCU. Doctor Strange comes in to put it all back together again, and when he does, boom. Now we have all these additional characters, all these races, all these different adventures that weren't there before, because, you know, in the real world, studios had licensing, but now they're all back together again. And we have an opportunity to tell a whole range of stories that we couldn't before, and a way to figure it out without calling people Inhumans when they really should have been called mutants, and everything else that's going on. So that's my theory. It's a prediction. I could be wrong. I'd like it. I think that would be a great way to go, but we'll see. So let me know what you think. If you think that's a completely ludicrous idea, or if it makes total sense, let me know down in the comments section. Please also like, share, comment, subscribe. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, depending on whether or not you liked it or you didn't. If you think this is a terrible idea, give me that thumbs down. Give me that comment down below. Let me know how you think I'm off, and let's talk about it. I'd be happy to get you on a stream sometime if you're open to it, and we can talk about it a little bit further and figure out what would be a better idea. How would you like to see this show turn out? Or is it just going to be a little fluff YouTube style or YouTube level streaming channel, and it's really not going to go anywhere? Maybe I'm making something out of nothing. Let me know in the comment section. Let me know what you think below. Don't forget, again, like, share, comment, subscribe. And if you haven't already, please, there's a link down below. Subscribe to my Comical Opinions newsletter. I try to put out a fairly in-depth article on an assortment of topics that affect the comic industry on a regular basis. A little bit behind this week, but I'll get back to it. And but I would love to see you subscribe, and I'm working on some perks that'll come out in the near future, but you'll only get them if you subscribe. So this is Gabe Hernandez from Comical Opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. I thought hopefully you had some fun listening to a fan theory, and I very much appreciate your time, and you have a great day.